Thanks a lot. Over 20 years has passed since bin charges and bin privatisation. All of our warnings about what that would mean have come to pass. We were defeated in the campaign against it, but everything we said has happened. The waivers went, the charges went up to a point where people are now faced with paying over €300. We had full-scale privatisation. We had a collapse in conditions of workers. Recycling levels have plateaued at the level of 2010 and haven't increased. A third of households still don't have access to brown bins. Dumping has increased. It's been a disaster for workers, for households, for the environment, where you have multiple bin trucks on different days going into the same estates. It makes no sense whatsoever for anyone apart from the profiteering private companies. Now, you have a growing movement for remunicipalisation, the trade unions, multiple councils, including Dublin City Council, calling for that. Legislation is needed, and I don't want the Minister to shirk this off back onto the councils. The government needs to take action so this can happen.
Thank you, Las Corda and deputies, for raising this. In Ireland, with the exception of one or two municipal districts, local authorities have all but exited the household waste collection market because in most cases they could not compete with the prices charged by private entrants. The obligations on local authorities in relation to collecting household waste are set out in the Waste Management Act of 1996 as amended, and in summary, they provide that each local authority shall collect or arrange for the collection of household waste within its functional area, but that the obligation to collect or arrange for the collection of household waste shall not apply if an adequate waste collection service is available in the local authority's functional area, if the estimated cost of the collection of the waste would, in the opinion of the local authority, be unreasonably high, or if the local authority is satisfied that adequate arrangements for the disposal of waste concerned can reasonably be made by the holder of the waste. Local authorities are responsible for municipal waste collection and waste management planning within their functional areas, and it's open to the Chief Executive of any local authority to exercise their executive function in relation to waste collection to re-enter the waste collection market as direct service providers, if they so choose, either alongside existing permanent service providers or subject to making arrangements to replace those service providers. Minister Ryan's focus is on achieving our challenging EU recycling targets, such as achieving a municipal solid waste recycling target of 55% by 2025, and seeking to alter the structure of the waste collection market now could be counterproductive to the achievement of those targets. We need to work with stakeholders in order to achieve those targets, and as they provide the service directly to consumers, waste collection companies are ideally placed to assist in increasing segregation and recycling by both households and commercial premises. Altering the structure of the market, whether by municipalising waste collection services or adopting competitive tendering, would take several years to implement. So in regards to the barriers that are required to be overcome, we have legal issues to consider, such as constitutional issues. Primary and secondary legislation would be required, competition law, state aid rules, procurement law, waste collection permit expiry dates, which are up to 5 years from now. A comprehensive public consultation would be required. We'd need agreement with local authorities. Significant capital expenditure by local authorities would be needed to prepare for waste collection services. Regulatory impact analysis, including a cost-benefit analysis to assess the costs and benefits to such an approach. It would likely lead to legal challenges from the industry, including on constitutional grounds, and the industry may threaten to withdraw the household waste collection and disengage with the process, with potential environmental pollution due to no waste being collected, which could also have consequences for other waste streams, for example, collection and management of commercial waste. Thank you.
Minister, is there a copy of the reply? It's practice to have a copy of it. Yeah, for everybody. Yeah, Garmod. It's there. It's on the screen. Yeah. Okay. Cumulishkin. Ich habe Paul Murphy.
How long do we have?
Half a minute.
Right. Yeah, one point, I mean, the point about the Deputy McAuliffe made about exiting the market. These markets were artificially created by the imposition of charges and then tendering out to private services. That's what happened. In terms of the Minister's answer, it's kind of unclear. On the one hand, he kind of points towards the councils and suggests the councils maybe could do this, when there's a very clear report from the IPA commissioned by Dublin City Council that says legislation is needed. On the other hand, he says, well, we need to do all these things, but he won't make a policy commitment. If the government, will the government do this? Will the government commit to investigating these things that he's saying need to be investigated so we can have remunicipalisation?
Thank you, deputies. So I absolutely agree that this should be discussed at committee. I'm happy. I don't think we have enough time here to work it all out. But there's a number of different things that arise. The first thing is, what exactly is remunicipalisation? Does it mean that the council hires workers directly, buys bin trucks and goes back to where it was in the past? Or does it mean that they outsource the collection to one particular company so that there is competition for the market rather than competition in the market? Are we going to put out a tender? What exactly are we trying to do? Secondly, what are we trying to achieve? What's the problem that we're trying to solve in the market at the moment? The number of deputies raised issues. They're worried that we're not going to meet recycling targets. We're currently meeting all of our recycling targets. Our next targets are due for 2025. I fully expect we're going to meet all of those as well. Secondly, the question is, are the charges too high? Are we paying too much for bins? Would it be cheaper if they were remunicipalised? But exactly what problem we're trying to solve should be written down and should be considered. And Deputy Collins says, we need to work out what the principle is. And absolutely. So I think we need to agree. What problem are we trying to solve? Where are we trying to get to? What is remunicipalisation? How do we want to go about it? As I said, the chief executive in a council can decide that they want to run their own waste collection service if they want. It's another question, but they would be running that in parallel with the existing private. They would be competing with the private operators. It's another question if we said we want to stop private operators from collecting waste. And in the past that the Dublin local authorities got together and attempted to prevent the private operators from collecting waste, and that they were legally stopped and told that they didn't own the waste the householders put out. And if a householder wanted to pay a private collector to collect their waste, they could. So there are different things. If we want to change that situation, we want to set up a situation where it's illegal for a householder to hire somebody else to take away their waste, even if that's cheaper than the local authority, then we are going to need legislation. We would need to discuss this at length. There are a lot of problems. I outlined them all. They're not imaginary problems. And previous ministers have tried to do this and have not succeeded. Thank you.